Hi there. Welcome to Bible/Chat. Hope you're doing well. Kevin, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, doing well.
Good.
We want to do an episode today about something that's real heavy. I'm sure you've seen in the news the Uvalde massacre of the kids and the two teachers. 21 people killed by this young man, this 18-year-old guy with a gun. And there's a lot in the news media, a lot of commentary, a lot of things being said. And just pastorally, I thought maybe we could discuss sort of what is going on there, what's happening. Obviously, from our worldview, we would say that's sin. It's a specific violation of the Ten Commandments. You shall not murder. And it's a violation that's repeated in the New Testament. The taking of life, the taking of the image of God from another person is sin, and it is wrong. But there's, I think, probably more to say about that. I think the world knows it's evil. But there's like a lot more to be said. So any thoughts that you could share with us?
Yeah, I was wondering, would you want to talk first pastorally or more, how you understand it?
Well, I think generally, like how we understand it, and then we can talk pastorally about how to think about it.
Yeah, I think one thing that stands out is, if you look at a passage like Psalm 10 or Proverbs 1, it is really interesting, I think, just before we go there, to realize that God's word does equip us to understand these kinds of things.
Yeah.
I think you see a lot in the news where people say, I cannot believe this happened, right? This is so mind-blowing that this could happen. And even people who talk about knowing this man when he was in middle school and saying, he was the sweetest, or how could this have happened? Christians do have answers for that. And I think you look at a passage like Psalm 10, verse 4, it says, speaking of the wicked, it says that all his thoughts are, there is no God. And so there's a rejection of God. And then in verse 8, it says that he sits in the places of the villages where one lies in wait, and in the hiding places he kills the innocent. And so there's someone who's killing the innocent, and the root cause of that is to deny God, which is also what you see in Proverbs 1, where he's saying, the fear of the Lord, the awareness of God, the reverence for God is the beginning of wisdom, and yet he describes the wicked as those who ambush the innocent without cause. And so we have an awareness where we can actually say, I think we all grieve, right? I think everybody grieves this, and this is horrendous.
Right.
This is
like a terrible wickedness.
It is so evil, but I think we understand why that is, and I think we have not just an innate feeling, like a gut check,
like the visceral reaction to the badness,
but like an actual reasoned basis, like an ultimate standard for why that is. It's, it just demonstrates like this is, we all have the image of God. We all have some degree of common grace where we have a conscience and his law is on our hearts. But to actually be able to point to God's character and the law of God for us and to be able to see it as wrong, I think that's really instructive to, have that. And I don't say that to be insensitive to anybody, right? It's just to understand it, though, as far as in the way a doctor would understand something that's wrong. You have to see it for what it is and to realize this is a man who's living consistently with his atheistic worldview.
Totally.
Which the world won't get. Yeah. Because the world is mind blown by this. Right. And yet this is what their worldview, this is the fruit of that.
Yeah.
And so our worldview would be to, preserve life and to protect, the unborn children and all of these kinds of things. And yet, in the sense, this man's being consistent and he's just been kind of handed over to it. And we see the effects of, when God hands someone over to their own worldview and their own rebellion, you see the wicked ambushing the innocent without cause. And it's super evil.
Yeah. So we can look at it and understand the sin of it. And what's interesting is that God informs us of those things. What's interesting is that if you read, at least what I've seen on social media recently, is just people saying, thoughts and prayers aren't enough. We need to do something.
Sure.
There's this call to do something. Which is fascinating because the way they're diagnosing the issue sort of is calling for there to be action. And the action seems to be directed toward gun control, which we're not even going to talk about that. That's not an issue because at the end of the day, the problem there is obvious, right? I mean, there's something broken in trying to do something to fix something that's actually an internal issue.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. We were talking about this a little bit before, how you made a good point about legislating.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're like teeing each other up.
Yeah.
You take it. Yeah. No, you can't legislate morality, right? You can't pass laws that cause a person to do what's right.
Mm-hmm.
You can try to fence in the wicked by laws, but at the end of the day, you can't cause them to have a conscience. You can't cause this young man to realize the evil of what he's about to do by instituting laws. In fact, I was reading one guy online. He said this guy broke 100 gun laws before he ever set foot on the premises, and walking into that school was a violation of the law, and everything that he did there was a violation of that. So he just has massive numbers of law violations in the act. So it's not the law that can cause him to be constrained. The law will never constrain him, and that's the problem. We're trying to fix the heart with a legal matter. Never work.
Is something the Bible has a lot to say about.
Right? Exactly.
I mean, like thousands of years of history about law, and all it does is aggravate sin.
Yep.
And so there's, I think, in line with the Sunday series, right? I think there is wisdom in how governments can punish evil. Sure. They do bear the sword. They did bear the sword
in
on
this
this man.
Yeah.
I think that's a just use of the law to prevent further harm. All these kinds of things. I think even with Romans 13, it talks about punishing those who do evil, which is to say that they've decided to do evil and the government responds to them, but to actually take a proactive approach and say, you must do this, that's not how we work, as people.
Yeah. And it just doesn't work.
No.
You give them laws and it's not going to work because the heart is still desperately wicked and there's nothing we can do to cure it. Yeah. So at the end of the day, what would our answer be for issues like this?
Well, I mean, in line with passages like Proverbs and Psalms and others is an awareness. I mean, in the language of Proverbs is the fear of the Lord.
Yeah.
But the fear of the Lord comes through forgiveness. I forget the actual psalm.
Yeah.
You might know it.
It's okay. Psalm 130.
130, where there is forgiveness with God that you may be feared. Right. It's that awareness that He is a consuming fire, but He has exercise. He's extinguished that in His Son to be able to welcome us back to Him. That is what brings us to have awe and gratitude, as Hebrews 12 talks about. And so I think it's that fear of God, the reverence for God, that is going to reshape somebody, right? And the grace of God, the love of God, all of that transformative grace, giving someone a new heart. Honestly, it's gospel, not government. Not to say the government doesn't have responsibility, but when we're talking about an actual solution, the solution is to have the gospel preached in churches that change hearts, that then change cultures.
Yeah, that produces a fear of the Lord.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because, for those who are outraged by it, there's a comfort in the reality that their justice has been served on this young man already. Though it's unbelievably unjust what he did. When he died, he stood before a holy God, and really we ought to feel pity for him.
Yeah.
When he stands before God, the anger of God at that unrighteousness that he's just perpetrated is unleashed on him in its full fury, and he should be. We honestly need to pity him, pity his soul, because he'll be in hell forever. Which means justice has been served, and if he had rightly feared God prior to making these decisions and recognized the holiness of God and recognized what it means that God could forgive him for his selfishness and the wickedness that was in his heart that would have even caused him to think about doing this, he would never have carried those things forward.
Yeah.
It's like when you're trying to put a Band-Aid on cancer, right? It doesn't fix it.
Yeah.
But if you change his heart so that he understands the reality that God is real and that he will give an answer to God, everything changes.
Yeah, it totally does. I mean, because this guy, I mean, if he's saying there is no God, and then he's basically assuming God's place, to put that back in line, right? He says in his heart, I will not be shaken, this is Psalm 110 again, other things like that, but to realize God is the one who determines everything, and you're just freeloading on his grace, and God is just holding you there.
Yeah.
You are just literally held, by a thread, in a sense. And so that awareness, I think only God can open your eyes to see that. But I think that's the big point, though, is that it is the gospel. It is that revelation of God that changes somebody, and not just simply these governmental issues. And I think that's where the culture doesn't even really have the language to talk about these kinds of things.
Totally. Yeah. So. Yeah. Which is sad, right? I mean, there's these calls to do something, but they are very amorphous, right? Like you read the calls to do something, it's always like just generalized, like, oh, we got to do something. But that language is carried into legal reforms and gun confiscation and like types of guns you can own and waiting periods and all those things, none of which would have restrained this guy.
Yeah, no.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, that's helpful. Thank you. There's probably lots more we could say pastorally, like how do we deal with, our hearts when we see something like this, and there's lots more to be said. But I think that's a good sort of foundation.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, the answer for the culture and the answer for even those families, the answer for all families and all people is actually the same answer, which is fear God and turn away from evil, right? And at the end of the day, that's the reality.
Yeah.
So good. All right. Well, thanks so much, and hope that's helpful for you. I know these are hard seasons when these types of events happen. But if you have any questions on this, feel free to reach out to us. It's info@faithbibleoc.org. Thanks so much.